చదివేటప్పుడు ఊరికి అది చూసుకుంటే చదవకుండా
కట్టేసాను.
ఉన్నాయి ఉన్నాయి.
We'll use a simplified illustration to look at
Okay, good morning, students. All of you, good morning. Hello. Good morning, students.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
All of you,
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
is my voice is clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So no disturbance from my end, I hope. No disturbance, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So welcome to this session. Today we are going to see, types of circuit breakers. Before going to the types of circuit breakers, let us have, recollect the class what we discussed yesterday. Okay. Let me call Bhavani. What we discussed yesterday. Bhavani,
Sir, we discussed the resistance method. Hello?
yes, continue.
And deionization of medium can be achieved by, and they type four types: lengthening of gap, high pressure and cooling and blast effect.
Okay. So again, let me ask Rajyalakshmi. Rajyalakshmi is there?
Yes, sir.
Rajyalakshmi, what are the
Yes, sir.
responsible factors to maintain the arc between the contacts of the circuit breaker? What are the responsible factors to maintain the arc between the contacts of the circuit breaker?
Voltage
Voltage restriction. Okay.
Dielectric study.
Dielectric study. Is that right, Satyasindhu? Satyasindhu.
Right?
Is that right? What are the responsible factors to maintain the arc between the contacts of the circuit breaker?
Yes, sir. Dielectric strength, potential energy, arc voltage.
Okay, good. So potential difference and the potential difference or the arc voltage between the contacts of the circuit breaker is the one factor, and the second factor is the dielectric strength, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. So then next let me ask Deepika. Deepika is there?
Yes, sir.
Deepika, my question is, if dielectric strength is more than the restriking voltage at the current zero instant, then what will happen?
Increase the dielectric strength, sir.
No. Try to understand my question. If the dielectric strength is more than the arc voltage or restriking voltage across the contacts of the circuit breaker, then what will happen?
Dielectric arc will be contact speed, sir.
Question అర్థమైందా?
అర్థమైంది, సార్.
Okay, then answer.
డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంగ్త్ యొక్క డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంగ్త్ అనేది తగ్గించాలి, సార్. ఆర్క్ అనేది ఇన్ బిట్వీన్ ద కాంటాక్ట్స్ ఉంటుంది, సార్.
Completely misunderstood. See, my question is, if the dielectric strength is more than the restriking voltage across the contact of the circuit breaker, then what will happen? Balaji? Balaji,
Yes, sir.
question విన్నావా?
Yes, sir. Answer.
చెప్తున్నాను ఆన్సర్.
Now electrons between the contacts deionized అయిపోతాయి.
అంటే డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్ ఎక్కువ, if the dielectric strength is more than the restricting voltage, then what will happen?
Electrons between the contacts deionization.
డిఐనైజ్ అయిపోవడం వల్ల ఏం జరుగుతుందాడా? అది నాకు అల్టిమేట్గా ఏం జరుగుతుందాడా?
అంటే మీడియం బ్రేక్ అవ్వచ్చు, సార్.
మీడియం బ్రేక్ అవ్వదు. బ్రేక్ అవ్వకుండా ఇంకేం జరుగుతుంది? అదంతా దేనికోసం చేశాం?
రీస్ట్రైకింగ్ వోల్టేజ్ డెవలప్ అవ్వకుండా ఉండడానికి చేసాం.
ఎందుకు అవ్వకుండా ఉండాలని చేశాం? ఒకవేళ అది రీస్ట్రైక్ అయితే ఏమవుతుంది? అది రీస్ట్రైక్ అయితే ఏమవుతుంది వోల్టేజ్? వోల్టేజ్ రీస్ట్రైక్ అయితే ఆర్క్ విల్ పర్సిస్ట్ కదా. ఆర్క్ విల్ పర్సిస్ట్ నెక్స్ట్ హాఫ్ సైకిల్, అంతేనా బాలాజీ? హలో బాలాజీ, భువనేశ్వర్ ఉందా? భువనేశ్వర్, Bhuvaneshwari, what will happen? The dielectric strength is more than the restriking voltage, then what will happen?
There will be no restriking of voltage between the contacts.
Okay. Then what happens? No restriking of voltage, right? Then consequence, what is the consequence of that? ఆర్క్ ఎక్స్టింగ్యూస్ కదా. అదే కదా, ఆర్క్ ని ఎక్స్టింగ్యూస్ చేయాలని కదా. మరి I mean there is no chance for the current to flow, so arc will be interrupted. అదే కదా మనకు కావాల్సింది. డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్ ని పెంచింది. ఎస్, క్లియర్? ఇప్పుడన్నా క్లియర్ అయిందా?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question for Shravani. Shravani is there?
Yes, sir.
Shravani, suppose the restriking voltage, the moment when the current is at zero position, the restriking voltage is build up more than the dielectric strength. What will happen?
Hmm?
If the restriking voltage build up more than the dielectric strength at the moment at which the current fault current reaches zero.
R persists for another cycle, sir.
Good. Arc persists for another cycle.
Another cycles.
Okay, chalo. Next, we are moving to further that we are going to discuss um, types of circuit breakers. So there we are going to see types of circuit breaker. So here we discuss the arc voltage, restriking voltage, recovery voltage. So up to recovery voltage, yesterday you have seen up to recovery voltage. Now we are going to see the rate of rise of restriking voltage. I mean, how much rate that restriking voltage is taking place at the point at which the voltage, current, fault current is reaching the zero. That is what is zero. You just make a note of it very quickly. So it is the slope of the steepness tangent of the restriking voltage curve, as we have seen in yesterday class. So there, the moment when the current is reaching the zero, then the restriking voltage reaches its peak value. అదే కదా మనం నిన్న చూసింది, అదేనా నిన్న చూసింది.
Yes, sir.
రీస్ట్రైకింగ్
Yes, sir.
వోల్టేజ్ సడన్ గా ఇంక్రీజ్ అయింది కదా, ఎక్కడ ఫాల్ట్ కరెంట్ జీరో అయిన దగ్గర రీస్ట్రైకింగ్ వోల్టేజ్ సడన్ గా ఇంక్రీజ్ అయింది. సో సడన్ గా ఇంక్రీజ్ అయింది, అది ఎంత రేటు, హౌ మచ్ రేట్ దట్ ఇట్ ఇంక్రీజ్, ఇట్ టెల్స్ అబౌట్ హౌ మచ్ స్టీప్నెస్ ఇన్ దట్ వేవ్ ఫార్మ్ is tells about the rate of rise of restriking voltage. So it is the slope of that steepness tangent of a restriking voltage curve, which is expressed in kilovolts per microseconds. See, I just want to show you again the Jamboard, the same thing what we have seen yesterday. I have shown you yesterday the waveform, right? When the fault current is reaching the zero, then the voltage at the contacts of the circuit breaker is increases rapidly. Means there is a transience. The blue line we have seen yesterday, like high transients. Here I am showing this all together. So this is the system voltage. Yesterday we have written the system voltage. It is a circuit voltage. Then this is the fault current. This is the arc voltage. At the moment when it reaches the zero, drastically increases. But this increases again depends on the dielectric strength of the medium at this moment. అది మనం నిన్న నీట్గా చూసాం. So clearly explained yesterday how it increases and how it is reaches to again the system voltage or circuit voltage, and which is approximately equal to the system voltage. That voltage is called as recovery voltage. అది మనం నిన్న చూసాం. So let me move ahead. The rate of rise of restriking voltage can be expressed as the voltage to the square root of LC. So what this equation is reminding us here. So transients వచ్చాయి కదమ్మా, ఇక్కడ transients వచ్చాయి. Here the transients are there in the arc voltage, arc restriking voltage. In this restriking voltage there will be a transients. నిన్న బాగా హైట్గా పీక్ ఎక్కువ పెట్టి చూపించాను కదా, అదే వేవ్ ఫామ్ ఇది. So the blue line indicates the restriking voltage. So here this is the fault current, green line is the fault current. This fault current reaching the zero, then restriking voltage increases rapidly, and there will be a transience in the voltage. This transient voltage will be vanished due to the damping circuit. So what is the damping effect? The resistance, inductance and capacitance. Due to that damping effect, this transient voltage will be vanishes. I mean the transient in the restriking voltage will be vanishes rapidly due to the damping effect. So the damping effect is damping effect is by the resistance and the inductance and capacitance. So this is, I mean, when the damping system collapse, or when the damping system is vanishes the transient voltage, then the transient voltage will be damped out, then it reaches to the recovery voltage. That recovery voltage is approximately equal to the system voltage. అంతే కదా. ఆ రికవరీ వోల్టేజ్ని ఆ వేవ్ ఫామ్లో లాస్ట్కి వచ్చేసరికి మళ్ళీ ఏం ఫాలో అయింది? Recovery voltage follows the system voltage after vanishes these transients. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
So that is what. అది ఎలా డ్యాంప్ అవుట్ ఎలా వ్యానిష్ అయిపోతాయి ట్రాన్సియన్స్ అంటే బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద ఎఫెక్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద డాంపింగ్. సో ఆ డాంపింగ్ ఎలా వస్తున్నాయి అంటే బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్రెజెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ద ఇండక్టెన్స్, కెపాసిటెన్స్, రెసిస్టెన్స్. రైట్, there will be a damping effect. I mean, due to this damping effect, the transients in the restriking voltage will be vanishes. Then that restriking voltage becomes the recovery voltage, and that recovery voltage is equal to the system voltage, approximately equal to the system voltage. So this is what do we call a rate of rise of restriking voltage. Arc voltage, first arc voltage, then the restriking voltage, then the recovery voltage, then the rate of rise of restriking voltage. Now, so this is what we discussed, the how many methods of arc extinctions are there. High resistance method, which is applicable only for DC circuit, but of course for small AC, lower capacity of AC applications also. But big setback with the high resistance method, because the huge amount of the energy is dissipated there, so we are losing the power there. Because of that, I know that is restricted to the DC circuits. And then we came to the low resistance method. There this method is purely applicable for AC circuits. Then since it is applicable for AC circuit, because of the nature of the AC waveform, for every half cycle it reaches the zero. There we can have a chance to increase the dielectric strength of the medium. Right. So next we'll move to the types of the circuit breakers. So here we are going to see the types of the circuit breakers. So what are the different types of the circuit breakers that we can see? See here, I mean, types of the circuit breakers is depending upon the medium, which medium that we are using for the extinction of the arc. సో ఆర్క్ని ఎక్స్టింక్షన్ చేయడానికి మనము ఒక మీడియం యూజ్ చేస్తాం బ్రేకర్లో. ఆ మీడియంను బట్టి దీస్ టైప్స్ విల్ బి డిసైడెడ్. I mean, types of the circuit breakers will be categorized based on the type of medium that we use in the circuit breaker. So in the circuit breaker for extinction of the arc, right? So arc extinction కావాలంటే రెండు పారామీటర్స్ రెస్పాన్సిబుల్గా ఉన్నాయి. ఏం పారామీటర్స్ అంటే, ఒకటి పొటెన్షియల్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఆర్ ద రీస్ట్రైకింగ్ వోల్టేజ్ అక్రాస్ ద కాంటాక్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ is the one parameter, and the second parameter is the dielectric strength of the medium. So we are focusing on these two parameters, and we are trying to extinguish or interrupting the arc as quickly as possible. సో ఎంత తొందరగా వీలైతే అంత తొందరగా ఆర్క్ని ఇంటరప్ట్ చేస్తున్నాం కదా. సో ఏవైతే ఏ పారామీటర్స్ అయితే దాన్ని మెయింటైన్ చేస్తున్నాయో, ఏ పారామీటర్స్, వోల్టేజ్ లేకుంటే పొటెన్షియల్ డిఫరెన్స్ అక్రాస్ బిట్వీన్ ద కాంటాక్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ద సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకరు, డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్, ఆ రెండింటి మీద ఫోకస్ చేసి ఆ రెండింటి మీద మన కంట్రోల్లోకి వస్తే దోస్ టూ పారామీటర్స్ కెన్ బి కంట్రోల్డ్, దెన్ ఆర్క్ ఇంటరప్షన్ విల్ బి ఈజీ, right? So then the arc extinction will be easy. Because of that, we are choosing the different mediums for extinguish the arc. Based on those mediums, the circuit breakers are classified these many types. One is the oil circuit breaker, second one is the air blast circuit breaker, third one is the sulfur hexafluoride. జనరల్లీ మీ మామూలుగా క్వశ్చన్ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్స్లో అట్లా సింపుల్గా SF6 సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ అంటూ ఉంటారు అనమాట. SF6 circuit breaker and then vacuum circuit breaker. So these are the 4 types of circuit breakers that we are going to see as a part of your syllabus, and these are the different mediums. Medium is, in the oil circuit breaker, medium is oil. In the air blast circuit breaker, air blast is the medium. Sulfur hexafluoride circuit breaker, SF6 gas is the medium. And vacuum circuit breaker, vacuum is the medium, in medium between the contacts of the circuit breaker. So now what we are going to see in these circuit breakers are, what we are going to see is, how these will extinguish the arc, by maintaining the what is a potential difference between the contacts, and at the same time increasing the dielectric strength. ఈ రెండు పాయింట్స్ ని కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేస్తూ, సో వీఆర్ explaining the operation of these different types of circuit breakers. Let me explain one by one, but here for out of these we have important circuit breakers are air blast, sulfur hexafluoride and vacuum. Of course oil circuit breaker is also there, but I'll explain the concept of this and I'll give you the rest as an assignment. So here in the oil circuit breaker, again we have two type circuit breakers. One is the bulk oil circuit breaker, second one is the low or minimum oil circuit breaker. Low oil circuit breaker or minimum oil circuit breaker. So these are the two types under the oil circuit breaker. So again there will be a categories in the bulk oil circuit breaker. Those are plain break oil circuit breaker, arc control oil circuit breaker. So overall there are 4: oil circuit breaker, air blast circuit breaker, SF6 gas circuit breaker, vacuum circuit breaker. So on the first oil circuit breaker, again classified as two types: bulk oil circuit breaker, low or minimum oil circuit breaker. Bulk oil circuit breaker again classified as plain break oil circuit breaker and arc control oil circuit breaker. So now we'll see first oil circuit breaker. What is the concept behind oil circuit breaker? In order to increase the dielectric strength of the medium at the moment at which the fault current reaches the zero, or the moment when the contacts start to separate, begin to separate when the fault occurs, right? So how can we maintain the restriking voltage? How can maintain the restriking voltage, and how can we increase the dielectric strength of the medium between the contacts? The first circuit breaker that we are going to see is oil circuit breaker. Oil circuit breaker, let me right, this is the oil circuit. I'm just explaining the concept behind the oil circuit breaker. You can just make a note of it also while you are listening. So while you are listening, you just make a note of it. I am going to explain the concept behind this oil circuit breaker. Say this is the oil circuit breaker. These blue lines are the conductors, the contacts. The blue lines are the contacts. This side is the moving contact. You can see in the slide, this is the moving contacts. This is the fixed contacts. This side fixed contact, this side moving contacts, and this yellow color is the oil which we are using as a medium. మనం చెప్పుకున్నాం కదా, depending upon the medium circuit breakers are categorized. So this is the oil circuit breaker, since we are using the oil as the medium between the contacts of the circuit breaker. So all this yellow color represents the oil, dielectric oil, and this is have the dielectric strength. So here transformers lo use chestam kada oka oil, so that also the same oil what we use here also. This is the transformer oil. This oil is having the high dielectric strength. So high dielectric strength, this oil we are using as a medium for the contacts of the circuit breaker. So here what is happening, as we seen yesterday and day before yesterday classes, the operation of the circuit breaker, then these are the fixed and moving contacts. So under the normal condition, what is the status of these contacts? What is the status of these contacts under the normal condition?
Closer positions.
Right. These now these contacts are immersed in the oil. So first case is, if these contacts are closed, then the circuit for which it is connected is under normal condition. Now the moment when the fault takes place, and I mean second case, moment when the fault takes place, then what will happen? These contacts will start begin to separate each other. So the moment when the contacts are separating, then there will be a production of the arc. This dotted lines are production of the arc, I mean generation of the arc. This dotted line indicating the arc producing between the contacts of the circuit breaker the moment when these contacts are separating at the fault takes place in the network, right? So when the arc is taking place between the contacts, then what will happen? When the arc is generated, there will be a huge amount of the heat will be generated. So this heat, whatever the heat that is generated in the form of arc, will evaporate the oil which surrounds the contacts of the circuit. The key point that you need to notice is that, so this heat will evaporates the oil which surrounds the contacts of the circuit breaker. Okay, so when it evaporates, when it evaporates the oil, then it disassociated with the oil and produces the hydrogen gas. Are you listening my voice?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is the key point that you need to understand in this case. When the arc is generated between the contacts of the circuit, and there will be a huge amount of the heat will be generated, that heat will evaporate the oil which surrounds the contacts of the circuit breaker. So then it disassociated with the oil and generating the hydrogen gas. When this hydrogen gas is generated, so hydrogen gas is having the property of high heat conductivity. It absorbs the heat. Hydrogen gas will absorb the heat. So not only the hydrogen gas, and in addition to the hydrogen gas, there will be a methane and ethanol gases is also released. But the percentage of the methane and ethanol gas is very less compared to the hydrogen gas. That is why I am using only the hydrogen gas to explain how it extinguishes the arc, right? So the first point that you need to realize that the heat which is produced by the arc will evaporate the oil which surrounds the contacts of the circuit breaker. And the second is, it disassociated with the oil and generate the the hydrogen gases, and this hydrogen gas occupies a volume. This hydrogen gas occupies a volume which is 1,000 times more than that of the oil between the contacts. This is the second point that you need to realize. First point emankunam, so it is evaporating the oil. This heat is evaporating the oil and disassociating with the oil and generating the hydrogen gas, methane and ethanol gases. But methane and ethanol gases are very less percentage compared to the hydrogen gas. So we are not considering in the explanation. We are considering the hydrogen gas, and this hydrogen gas is occupies a volume is 1,000 times more than the oil, more than that of the oil between the contacts. So that is why this hydrogen gas bubbles. This hydrogen gas forms as a bubble. This white color you are showing, right? So you are seeing this white color. This white color bubble represents the hydrogen gas. This white color bubble between the contacts of the circuit breaker represents the hydrogen gas. This hydrogen gas occupies the volume that is 1,000 times more than the oil. So because of that, this hydrogen gas bubbles pushes the oil away from the contacts of the circuit breakers. This hydrogen gas bubble, because its volume is 1,000 times more than the oil, then what will happen? So this will pushes away that oil. This hydrogen gas bubble pushes away the what is it, that oil from the contacts of the circuit breaker. When this oil pushes away the contacts of the circuit breaker, then arcing products also there, right, in between the contacts of the circuit breaker. That arcing products are also carrying away from the contacts of the circuit breaker. When the arcing products are pushes away from the contact of the circuit breaker by the hydrogen gas bubble, then there will be a easily extinction of the arc between the contacts of the circuit breaker, because this is having the hydrogen gas is having the very good excellent property of heat conductivity, and it is also having the excellent property of cooling property is also there for hydrogen gas. So this hydrogen gas, what is happening, it pushes away the oil which is around the contacts of the circuit breaker, then immediately it cools the arc. The moment when it cools the arc, dielectric strength of the medium will be increased. One way it is dielectric strength of the medium will be increased, and another way, when it is expands, this hydrogen bubble expands between the contacts of the circuit breaker or adjacent to the contacts of the circuit breaker, then what will happen, it carries away the, if at all is there any arcing products that will carries away from the contacts of the circuit breaker. When the arcing products are carrying away from the contacts of the circuit breaker, then there is no chance for the voltage to restrike, because the dielectric strength is more now. The dielectric strength is strong enough. The dielectric strength, the buildup of the dielectric strength is more than the restriking of the arcing voltage between the contacts of the circuit breaker. So two ways we are maintaining the potential difference between the contacts of the circuit breaker by the hydrogen gas. At the same time, by cooling the medium between the contacts of the circuit breakers with the help of the hydrogen gas, we are increasing the dielectric strength of the medium. See, the two parameters actually whose are responsible for maintaining the arc is taking away with the hydrogen gas. In that way, we are successful. We will be succeeded. We will be succeeded to extinguish the arc as soon as possible with the help of the hydrogen gas. So extinction of the arc is facilitated by two ways. Yes or no? Yes or no? Extinction of the arc is facilitated by two ways with the help of the hydrogen gas. One way vachesi, so because of its natural property that hydrogen gas is having the excellent cooling property, because of that it cools the medium between the contacts such that we are increasing the dielectric strength of the medium, is one way. Second way is, so because its volume is 1000 times more than since that this hydrogen gas bubble will pushes away the oil, where the moment when it pushes away the oil, the arcing products are also pushes away from the contacts of the circuit breaker. When the arcing products are pushes away from the contacts of the circuit breaker, there is no chance for the arcing voltage to restrike. Right, means we are maintaining the potential difference between the contacts of the circuit, which is not sufficient to maintain the arc. Right, by providing the by offering these two ways, we are extinguish the arc between the contacts of the circuit breaker in the oil circuit breaker. Are you clear with this concept?
Yes, sir.
How oil circuit breaker will works out, right? So the rest, I clearly explained the concept behind the oil circuit breaker. So by using the oil, how can we extinguish the arc? Right, so as I said that these are again two types. One is the bulk oil circuit breaker, second one is the low oil or minimum oil circuit breaker. So I want you to write an assignment for these two, bulk oil circuit breaker and low oil minimum circuit breaker. Bulk oil circuit breaker, generally we use the high quantity of the oil. Quantity of the oil is more in the bulk oil, quantity of the oil is less in the low minimum oil circuit breaker. The concept behind this is same what I explained now. The concept is same. Oil is using, and when contacts are separated, then the hydrogen gas is generated, and hydrogen gas is pushes the oil away from the contacts of the circuit breaker, and it cools the medium. By cooling the medium, increasing the dielectric strength and pushing away the oil and making the arcing products to get away from the contacts of the circuit breaker. Then we are extinguish the arc. Concept is same. Okay, so then advantage of the oil circuit breaker. What are the advantages? So it is having the good the heat conductivity property, or it absorbs the arc energy to decompose the oil into gases which have excellent cooling properties. Hydrogen gas is having the excellent cooling property. The second is it acts that oil that is act as an insulator and permits the smaller clearance between the live conductors and earthed components. And it is also this insulator, this medium should also responsible to have the to give the to clear the arcing products between the contacts of the circuit breaker in order to increase the insulation or insulation of the medium between the contacts. That is what the second point says. The surrounding oil presents a cooling surface in close proximity to the arc. Cooling surface in close proximity between the contacts of the circuit breaker. So that is the advantage of this oil circuit breaker. But it is having the disadvantage. It is having the risk of fire. Because it is a oil, there is a risk of fire, and it may form an explosive mixture with air. There is a possibility that explosion will take place. Need to take care, but this be considered as a disadvantage. And third one is arcing products. I keep on using the word arcing products, right? So when the heat is generated, there is a generation of arcing products. Example is carbon that remain in the oil. So if the arcing products remain persist in the oil, the lifetime of the oil will be decreases. That is what its quality will be deteriorates with the successive operations. For every operations, what will happen? For every operation, there will be a arcing products. There will be arcing products. So when the arcing products is there for every operation, this will deteriorate the lifespan, or this will decrease the quality of the oil with the successive operations. This is the because it is a very costly oil that we use. Every time for maintaining the quality in the oil, every time we need to replace this. But it is a costly oil, so it is again comes disadvantage. So this is all about advantage and disadvantage of the oil circuit breaker. I just have this a plain bulk oil circuit breaker, comes plain break oil circuit breaker. This you can write as an assignment. Arc control oil circuit breaker, advantage and disadvantage. This is the low or minimum oil circuit breaker, advantage, minimum advantage. This is the second, very important for examination point of view. Many question papers that you can see this question: air blast, either air blast or SF6 blast, and vacuum. ఈ మూడిట్లోనే మీ క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్లో యూ కెన్ సీ ద క్వశ్చన్. వెరీ రేర్ యూ కెన్ సీ ద క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్ ఆయిల్ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్. బట్ ఈవెన్ దెన్ వీ షుడ్ బి అవేర్ ఆఫ్ ద ఆయిల్ సర్క్యూట్. బికాస్ ఆఫ్ దట్ రీజన్ ఐ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ ద కాన్సెప్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద ఆయిల్ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్. నౌ కమింగ్ టు ద ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్. ఏ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ అయినా మన ఇంటెన్షన్ ఏంటి? ఏ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ అయినా మన ఇంటెన్షన్ ఏంటి? శ్రీలేఖ, శ్రీలేఖ, శ్రీలేఖ is there in the class? క్వశ్చన్ నా మాటలు వినపడుతున్నాయా? క్వశ్చన్ అర్థమైందా? మీరు మ్యూట్ లో పెట్టుకోలేదు, ఎవరో మ్యూట్ లో పెట్టుకోలేదు. ఎవరో అన్మ్యూట్ లో ఉన్నారు, మ్యూట్ చేయండి. శ్రీలేఖ, నీదేనా సౌండ్? మ్యూట్ చేయను. పూజిత is there? breakers?
To extinguish the arc, sir.
Arc by using by using different mediums, అంతే కదా?
sir.
అందులో భాగంగా ఫస్ట్ దాంట్లో ఆయిల్ మీడియంగా యూజ్ చేస్తాం.
Circuit breaker, sir.
Oil as a dielectric medium in the oil circuit breaker. Now second circuit breaker is the air blast circuit breaker. Here we using the air as the medium, air blast. We are using the circuit breaker. Here also we see how we are increasing the dielectric strength of the medium the moment at which the current fault current is reaching the zero or just crossing the zero. These breakers employ a high pressure air blast as an arc quenching medium, as an arc extinguishing medium. The contacts will open when the fault occurs in the flow of air blast, which is established by the one valve. I'll show you in the figure. There you can see the one valve. So that will allow the air blast enter into the arcing chamber. I'll show you that. Then this air blast cools the arc and sweeps away the arcing products to the atmosphere. అదే మనం రెండే విషయాలు చేస్తాం దేంట్లో అయినా. ఒకటి పొటెన్షియల్ డిఫరెన్స్ని మెయింటైన్ చేయాలి. దాన్ని మెయింటైన్ చేయాలంటే ఆర్కింగ్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ కాంటాక్ట్స్ మధ్యలో ఉండకుండా చూసుకోవాలి. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం కాంటాక్ట్స్ మధ్యలో ఉన్నటువంటి మీడియంని డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్ని ఇంక్రీజ్ చేయాలి. ఈ రెండు పాయింట్లనే ఏ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ని ఆపరేట్ చేసినా ఈ రెండు పాయింట్ల మీదనే కాన్సన్ట్రేట్ చేస్తాం. So here the rapidly increases the dielectric strength of the medium between the contacts and prevents from the re-establishing the arc. Consequently the arc is extinguished and the flow of current is interrupted such that the circuit will be opened. The device will be saved, right? So here there are different types of air blast circuit breaker, ABCB, air blast circuit breaker. So depending upon the direction of the air blast in relation to the arc, air blast circuit breakers are classified 3 types depending upon the direction of the air blast. అంటే ఏ డైరెక్షన్లో ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ అవుతా ఉంది, ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ జరుగుతూ ఉంది దాని with respect to the arc. So with respect to the arc, so which direction that air blast is taking place in the arc chamber, depending on that the arcing air blast circuit breakers are 3 types. One is the axial blast type, second is the cross blast type, third one is the radial blast type. Axial blast ante the air blast is directed along the arc path. So air blast is travels along the path of the arc, along the arc path, that we call it as a air blast type. So air blast type and see here ikkada undi. If air blast is flowing, this means that the arc will taking a path between these contacts. అంటే ఇది యాక్సియల్గా ఉందన్నమాట. సో the air blast is axial blast type. It is taking a path along with the arc. That is why it is called as a axial blast. ఇక్కడ చూడండి రైట్ యాంగిల్లో ఉంది. బ్లాస్ట్ ఈజ్ రైట్ యాంగిల్, ఆర్క్ ఈజ్ లైక్ దిస్, ఆర్క్ పాత్ ఈజ్ లైక్ దిస్ అండ్ ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఈజ్ టేకింగ్ లైక్ దిస్. ఇట్ ఈస్ రైట్ యాంగిల్. సో ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఈజ్ రైట్ యాంగిల్ టు ద ఆర్క్ పాత్. సో ఇట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ఎ క్రాస్ బ్లాస్ట్. సో క్రాస్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఎందుకన్నామయ్యా అంటే ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ అన్నది ఆ రైట్ యాంగిల్ టు ద ఆర్క్ పాత్. ఆర్క్ పాత్ ఇలా ఉంటే కాంటాక్ట్స్ బిట్వీన్ ద సర్క్యూట్ ఆర్క్ పాత్ ఇలా ఉంటే ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఇలా జరుగుతుంది, ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఇలా ఫ్లో అవుతుంది. సో ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఇలా ఫ్లో అవుతుంది కాబట్టి దీన్ని క్రాస్ బ్లాస్ట్ అన్నాం. బికాస్ ద ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఈజ్ రైట్ యాంగిల్ టు ద ఆర్క్ పాత్, సో ఇట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ఏ క్రాస్ బ్లాస్ట్. నౌ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ రేడియల్ బ్లాస్ట్ విచ్ ద ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఈజ్ డైరెక్టెడ్ రేడియల్లీ with the help of the with respect to the arc path. Okay. సో దట్ జనరల్లీ ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ సర్క్యూట్ బ్రేకర్ అంటానే మనకు మీ క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్స్లో కానీ మీ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్స్లో కానీ ఈ ఫిగర్ చూస్తామన్నమాట. సో వాట్ ఈస్ దిస్ ఫిగర్ చెప్పండి, ఇది ఏ టైప్ కిందికి వస్తుంది? క్రాస్ బ్లాస్టా, యాక్సియల్ బ్లాస్టా, లేకుంటే రేడియల్ బ్లాస్టా? సురేష్ ఏ బ్లాస్ట్ కిందకి వస్తుంది? ఇది చూడు, ఆడ నీకు క్లియర్గా ఆరో మార్క్స్ ఉన్నాయి, ఇండికేషన్స్. యాక్సియల్ కరెక్టేనా లావణ్య? మామూలుగా ఇంగ్లీష్ పలకలే ఇంగ్లీష్ పలుకుతుందో పలుకుతుందో మామూలుగా అది కరెక్టేనా? యాక్సిల్ బ్లాస్ట్ అయిపోయి కదా ఇది. Axial blast air blast circuit breaker. Now listen carefully the operation I am explaining here, and I want you to draw this circuit, I mean draw this picture while you are listening. While you are listening another key point. Okay, while you are listening you should draw this picture. I mean while you now I am explaining the operation of this air blast circuit breaker. So you can see here, this is the air reservoir. నా పాయింటర్ కనిపిస్తుందిమా?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is the air reservoir. This is the chamber. This is the air valve part. Air valve is the key part, and this is the chamber, and this is the moving contact. This is the fixed contacts, right? This is the spring action. This is the spring action. So two contacts to close, closed by. So this is the piston which carries moving contact. Piston is the moving contact. The air reservoir is the one where air blast will be stored, and this is the valve. So this is this valve is will be closed. This valve will be closed when contacts are closing. Contacts and moving contacts are closed, right? Closed by, there is a one mechanism to close and open the valve. That mechanism is called tripping impulse. So this tripping impulse make the air valve will close or open. So here during the normal operating condition of the circuit breaker, these contacts of the circuit breakers will be closed with the help of the spring action. The spring action will make these moving contacts to be closed with the fixed contacts. Okay, so when the fault occurs, this air valve will be opened by the tripping impulse mechanism. This air valve will be opened with the tripping impulse mechanism when the fault occurs. When this valve open, then the air, this high pressured air blast will rush to the arcing chamber through the air valve. The air blast which is reserved, which is stored in the air reservoir, will rush to the arc chamber through the air valve. When it is opened under the fault, then this high pressured air blast will moves these moving contacts away from the fixed contacts against the spring action. సో ఎవరు చేస్తున్నారా అంత పని అంటే ఈ ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చింది? రిజర్వాయర్లో నుంచి వచ్చింది. దేని ద్వారా వచ్చింది? ఎయిర్ వాల్వ్ నుంచి వచ్చింది. ఎయిర్ వాల్వ్ నుంచి ఇట్ ఈస్ రష్ టువర్డ్స్ టు ద ఆర్కింగ్ ఛాంబర్, అండ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ forcing the moving contacts against the spring action and making the separation between the fixed contacts and moving contacts. So it is forcing the moving contact. The air blast is forcing the moving contacts as quickly as possible, and it is passing and it is traveling along with the arc which is having the path between the contacts of the circuit breaker, right? So the moment when it is air blast is forcing the moving contacts away from the fixed contacts, the two things that we notice here, ఇది ఫోర్స్ చేస్తున్నటువంటి క్రమంలో ఏం చేస్తుంది? ఇట్ ఈస్ దిస్ ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ ఈస్ టేకింగ్ అవే ద ఆర్కింగ్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ and releasing to the atmosphere. First point. So the moment when the arcing products are taking away along with the arc path, then we are maintaining the potential difference between the contacts of the circuit breaker. The first point అంటే మనము ఫస్ట్ వోల్టేజ్ని రీస్ట్రైక్ చేయకుండా రీస్ట్రైక్ కాకుండా ఫస్ట్ పారామీటర్ని కంట్రోల్ చేస్తున్నాం బై ఎయిర్ బట్ హై ప్రెషర్డ్ ఎయిర్ బ్లాస్ట్ is taking away the arcing products between the contacts of the circuit breaker away from the contacts. First point. Second point, when the arcing products are pushing or forcing away from the contacts of the circuit breaker, so indirectly we are increasing the dielectric strength of the medium existing between the contacts of the circuit breaker, right? So then immediately this is cooling down. This arc will heat generated by the arc will be cooled down, then the dielectric strength of the medium will be increases, right? So this is increases, then what will happen immediately? Arc will be extinguished, because ఎందుకు రీజన్ ఏంటంటే ఆర్కింగ్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ లేవు ఇక్కడ. ఆర్కింగ్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ లేని కారణంగా ఇక్కడ వోల్టేజ్ బిట్వీన్ ద కాంటాక్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ద సర్క్యూట్స్ విల్ నాట్ బి రీస్ట్రైక్, అది రీస్ట్రైక్ అయ్యే అవకాశం లేదు. అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం కూల్ అయింది. కూల్ కావడం వల్ల డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్, బిల్డప్ ఆఫ్ డైఎలక్ట్రిక్ స్ట్రెంత్ ఈజ్ మోర్ దాన్ the increase in the restriking voltage. So immediately arc will be interrupted, the current will be interrupted, so the circuit will be opened such that device will be saved from the fault. So this is the operation of the air blast circuit breaker. అయితే ఇక్కడ ఇంకొక స్విచ్ ఉంది సార్, వాట్ ఈస్ దిస్? సో సిరీస్ ఐసోలేటర్ స్విచ్, వన్ ఐసోలేటర్ స్విచ్. So this isolator, function of this isolator switch is, see here, actually the gap between the contacts of the circuit breaker, especially in the air blast circuit breaker, is very small. That is 1.75 centimeter, not more than that. 1.75 centimeter gap only will exist between the air contacts of the circuit breaker in the air blast circuit breaker. So this small gap is contains inadequate clearance for the insulation between the contacts of the circuit breaker after the fault clearance. అందుకు ఇమ్మీడియట్గా ఆ గ్యాప్ అన్నది will not maintain, will not do the clearance for the the system voltage. అందుకే ఏం చేస్తామయ్యా అంటే we connect the one isolator switch as a part of the circuit breaker. After the fault clearance, we'll open the switch, this isolator switch. We'll open this after clearance of the fault, we open the isolator switch such that this will be, there will be the quick clearance between the contacts of the circuit breaker, which will provide the required insulation between the contacts. That is what the function of the isolator switch for you is. It can be used as a part of the circuit breaker. Isolator switch can be used as a part of air blast circuit breaker. This is all about the air blast circuit breaker. Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
So I'm just with this point I'm closing because time is over. So I'll take attendance. I hope all of you are understood this. So next class we move further. At this point of time I am stopping this class. Okay, now I am going to take attendance. All of you respond to the attendance. Still I forgot to call any names in the class. ఎవరైనా పేర్లు మిస్ అయ్యానా ఇంకా? రమ్య, హరిణి కూడా ఉన్నట్టుంది. హరిణిని కూడా అడగలేదు. హరిణి, రమ్య, రేణుశ్రీని అడిగాను కదా. ఓకే, రేణుశ్రీ అయిపోయింది. హరిణి, రమ్య. ఓకే, విల్ సీ టుమారో. Lakshmi, respond to that.
Praveen sir.
ఉందా పోయిందా అమ్మాయి? శ్రీలేఖ అడిగినా వెళ్ళిపోయినట్టుంది. భువనేశ్వర్, ఎవరు? శ్రీలేఖ.
Present, sir.
హరిణి,
Present, sir.
దిలీప,
Present, sir. Present, sir. Present, sir.
సత్య,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
ఫాతిమా ఖాన్,
Present, sir.
శ్రీవల్లి.
Present, sir.
ఏమమ్మా ఈరోజు నువ్వు ఆఫ్ అవుతున్నావు, ఆన్ అవుతున్నావు, లెఫ్ట్ అవుతున్నావు,
Present, sir.
అదే పోతున్నావు. బాలాజీ,
Present, sir.
సూర్యప్రభ,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
సాహితి,
Present, sir.
దుర్గా,
Present, sir.
రాణి,
Present, sir. Sir.
రమ్య,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
శైలి,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
హేమరాణి,
Present, sir.
లక్ష్మీదేవి,
Present, sir.
శ్రీవత్స,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
విజయకృష్ణ,
Present, sir.
గీతా, దుర్గా ప్రసాద్, శ్రీరామకృష్ణ,
Sir, 209, present, sir.
వరప్రసాద్,
Manjit.
రెడ్డి, జయకృష్ణ, దుర్గా,
Present, sir.
రాజేష్. ఓకే, విల్ మీట్ టుమారో.